Edward Lear's Nonsense Rhymes and Pictures, Part 2. There was an old man of Marseille, whose daughters wore bottle green veils. They caught several fish, which they put in a dish, and sent to their pa at Marseille. There was an old man of the Wrekin, whose shoes made a horrible creaking, but they said, "Tell us whether your shoes are of leather, or of what, you old man of Wrekin?" There was a young lady whose nose was so long that it reached to her toes, so she hired an old lady whose conduct was steady to carry that wonderful nose. There was a young lady of Norway who casually sat in a doorway. When the door squeezed her flat, she exclaimed, "What of that?" This courageous young lady of Norway. There was an old man of Apulia, whose conduct was very peculiar. He fed 20 sons upon nothing but buns, that whimsical man of Apulia. There was an old man of Quebec. A beetle ran over his neck, but he cried, "With a needle I'll slay you, O beetle," that angry old man of Quebec. There was a young lady of Boot, who played on a silver gilt flute. She played several jigs to her uncle's white pigs, that amusing young lady of Boot. There was an old person of Philo, whose conduct was scroobious and wily. He rushed up a palm when the weather was calm, and observed all the ruins of Philo. There was an old man with a poker, who painted his face with red ochre. When they said, "You're a guy," he made no reply, but knocked them all down with his poker. There was an old person of Prague, who was suddenly seized with the plague, but they gave him some butter, which caused him to mutter, and cured that old person of Prague. There was an old man of Peru, who watched his wife making a stew, but once by mistake in a stove she did bake, that unfortunate man of Peru. There was an old man of the north, who fell into a basin of broth, but a laudable cook fished him out with a hook, which saved that old man of the north. There was an old person of Troy, whose drink was warm brandy and soy, which he took with a spoon by the light of the moon, in sight of the city of Troy. There was an old person of Mold, who shrank from sensations of cold, so he purchased some muffs, some furs, and some fluffs, and wrapped himself well from the cold. There was an old person of Tring, who embellished his nose with a ring. He gazed at the moon every evening in June, that ecstatic old person of Tring. There was an old man of Nepal, from his horse had a terrible fall, but though split quite in two with some very strong glue, they mended that man of Nepal. There was an old man of the Nile, who sharpened his nails with a file, till he cut off his thumbs, and said calmly, "This comes of sharpening one's nails with a file." There was an old man of the Bruzy, so blind he couldn't his foot see. When they said, "That's your toe," he replied, "Is that so?" That doubtful old man of the Bruzy. There was an old man of Calcutta, who perpetually ate bread and butter, till a great bit of muffin on which he was stuffing choked that horrid old man of Calcutta. There was an old person of Rhodes, who strongly objected to toads. He paid several cousins to catch them by dozens, that futile old person of Rhodes. There was an old man of the South, who had an immoderate mouth, but in swallowing a dish that was quite full of fish he was choked, that old man of the South. There was an old man of Melrose, who walked on the tips of his toes, but they said, "It ain't pleasant to see you at present, you stupid old man of Melrose." There was an old man of the Dee, who was sadly annoyed by a flea. When he said, "I will scratch it," they gave him a hatchet, which grieved that old man of the Dee. There was a young lady of Lucca, whose lovers completely forsook her. She ran up a tree and said, "Fiddle-dee-dee," which embarrassed the people of Lucca. There was an old man of Koblenz, the length of whose legs was immense. He went with one prance from Turkey to France, that surprising old man of Koblenz. There was an old man of Bohemia, whose daughter was Christian Euphemia, but one day to his grief she married a thief, which grieved that old man of Bohemia. There was an old man of Corfu, who never knew what he should do, so he rushed up and down till the sun made him brown, that bewildered old man of Corfu. There was an old man of Vesuvius, who studied the works of Vitruvius. When the flames burnt his book, to drinking he took, that morbid old man of Vesuvius. There was an old man of Dundee, who frequented the top of a tree. When disturbed by the crows, he abruptly arose, and exclaimed, "I'll return to Dundee." There was an old lady whose folly induced her to sit in a holly, whereon by a thorn her dress being torn, she quickly became melancholy.